What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Ever since I released that video a few weeks back about how less than half of master's degree holding therapists get licensed, I have just been sitting and mulling and dwelling over this weight in my stomach about how difficult it is for folks to get licensed. And as a reminder, or if you missed that video, half of those folks said that the reason why they didn't get licensed is because of financial related concerns. So finances is one of the big reasons why folks are not able to enter the field. It feels like an important topic for me to address here to the extent that I can. And today we're gonna take a look at this question of whether it's okay to charge the amount that you want or need early in your career as a therapist. I made a video several months back addressing different questions that had come up in the comments, and there was actually one commenter that asked this question specifically, and we're gonna dive into it today. But to just paint the picture, I'm gonna read the comment that this commenter shared. I've found that it can sometimes feel like I'm not allowed to charge as much or more than people with more experience. But if I follow that, my practice would just not be sustainable with what it costs to live here as a younger adult who's trying to survive in this economy. I have no desire to overcharge anyone and really want therapy to be affordable. In fact, this is an area I could see myself being an activist in the future. I do want to be able to sustainably be a therapist for many years to come. That is my motivation to charge what is reasonable for me to live in my area. Now, that is a longer comment, but I think it captures all the nuance that comes up when we have this conversation. If we try to boil all this down into a simplified equation, like I want to advocate for access to affordable therapy, we might say, well, charge an affordable rate. However, we also have to consider that as therapists, we have bills to pay. We have deferred our income sometimes by 10 years just to go through all of our unpaid training. Most folks have also accrued 5 or 6 figures worth of student debt that they need to pay down. And also, private practice has a fair amount of overhead expenses to account for. And also, of course, the cost of living has shot up. So if you're not already a homeowner on a fixed mortgage, you might feel like, finding a place to live is getting inaccessible. So if we just said, hey, charge the amount that's affordable for your clients, then you may not be able to keep doing this job. So then what? Okay, now there's something that I really want to emphasize in this episode. What we tend to do as a field and as a society is we take a systemic issue of poor mental health care access and poor pay for therapists and see it as an individualized issue. I think all of us agree that in the US, access to mental health care services is incredibly difficult, and our care for those in the mental health field is also not prioritized within the healthcare system. But even though we're aware of that, when we see an individual therapist's choices and how they go about their career, we judge them on an individualized basis. So when we see somebody choose to work in private practice instead of at an agency, or choose to charge out of pocket instead of billing to insurance, or maybe choosing to charge more out of pocket than other therapists who charge out of pocket, we judge that individual therapist and say that they don't care about access to services. But we're judging the individual for a systemic issue. If we have this huge systemic issue, we're not going to make any progress forward if we put the burden on the individual to fix the systemic issue. If as a society we care about affordable access to mental health care services, we need to make society-wide changes in order for that to happen. So while we're living in a society that doesn't prioritize mental health care services, as the individual, each person is left to just do the best they can within the context of the broken system that we're in. Okay, all of that said, let's talk about whether it's actually okay to charge the amount that you want to charge, or maybe that you need to charge in order to make a livable wage when you're early on in your career or you're just kicking off into private practice. One piece of misinformation that I saw floating around is that a number of folks said that we have either a legal or an ethical obligation to charge a rate that's affordable for clients. Now, unless I'm missing some ethical obligations that exist in other jurisdictions that just don't apply in my jurisdiction of the state of California, I wasn't able to find any such obligation. However, there are places where we are encouraged to consider offering a certain amount of slots that are more of an affordable rate or pro bono or donating our time in various ways. We're not obligated to, but we are encouraged to consider it. But that's a very different thing than to say that we're obligated legally or ethically to charge an affordable rate. And keep in mind, I'm not a legal professional, and so I'm just kind of sharing what I found online. If I missed anything, please leave a comment and let me know about any legal or ethical concerns that I missed. So all of this to say, as far as I can tell, each individual therapist, particularly in a private practice setting, has the freedom to set their rate however they so choose, regardless of where they are in their career, regardless of how much expertise they have on something or not. It's simply a decision. It's not a moral decision. In my personal opinion, the only real solution to increasing access to therapy services is a radical systemic change in how we conduct our healthcare system. So for as long as we're still living in the wild, wild west of mental health care, where our current system isn't set up to support the client or the therapist well, one path to consider is building up your income early on, having a nice cushion of savings, retirement, and investments, and then from the abundance of having that financial cushion, consider giving more of your time away as you enter later phases of your career. From my experience, most of us who are therapists are not looking to greedily fill up our money bag and just endlessly sit on a larger and larger pile of money. But we do need to afford living in a way that feels safe and comfortable in order to offer safety and comfort for our clients. So if it's possible to build up that safety and comfort early on, then I think for a lot of therapists, once you reach a certain level of stability financially, we might then want to choose to give our time away in various ways in order to align with our values of increasing access to care. More than likely, if you see a therapist out there who's charging a cash rate that in your mind seems exorbitant, they're probably not being too greedy. It's probably that they're just trying to find a way to pay their bills. Now, with that said, of course, there's always folks in any field who are greedy, and those folks are out there in our field as well. But I'd venture a guess that on average, that's not the case amongst most therapists. And I mean, let's be honest, most people know that therapists don't make that much money. So if somebody was really in it for the money, they probably wouldn't be in this profession anyway. Another piece that feels worth noting, because it seems to go hand in hand with this topic, is that we know, generally speaking, folks who have more difficulty affording mental health care services tend to have higher mental health needs. I mean, it makes sense. If you're really struggling, it's hard to hold down a job, it's hard to be able to pay for services, etc. And so if we could have a shift in our culture as a field where, generally speaking, earlier on in our career, we do work with folks who are more financially equipped and a little bit more psychologically equipped. And as we go, we expect to get continued training so that we can work with folks who have higher and higher levels of needs. Then this whole system could work. Maybe. And as we know, currently the system is set up completely backwards from what I just said, where we work with the highest needs clients early on, where we have the least amount of training, the least amount of financial stability. And so we're putting therapists who have scarcity working with folks who have scarcity. And I don't know how we got here, but that just doesn't make any sense to me. To sum up, no matter how much you want to charge, it's okay to charge that amount. And I mean that in all directions fully, whether it's early in your career as a private practice therapist wanting to charge more than maybe what folks are suggesting you charge early on, whether it's later in your career, whether you want to maybe charge less than what other folks are charging, or you want to accept insurance or stay at the agency job. Whatever it is that you choose, it's okay. We're all just doing the best we can to live out our career in a way that aligns with our values best. So hopefully I've conveyed in this video that you have the freedom to do honestly whatever you want to do within, legal and ethical limits. And the decision is yours to figure out what makes the most sense given your needs, given your values, and given the system that we're working within. Well, this video felt more ranty than my average video, so I hope it was still helpful and offered some kind of practical tools for you as well. I'm curious to hear if my opinion aligns with your opinion, or if you have a different perspective than me. That's also totally okay, and I'd love to hear your perspectives in the comments below. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this video. TherapyNotes helps with all aspects of managing your practice, from scheduling to notes to billing, and they have a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform and so much more. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. I have a feeling I might be making some more content about finances as a therapist in general, so if there's anything in that realm you're interested in, feel free to let me know in the comments. I do check those, even though I almost never respond. I'm sorry, I get overwhelmed. I'm a person. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.